I was trying to think what game I've played the most, and I think the winner is Lux. What is Lux? It's just computer Risk. It's just computer Risk. Risk is fine, and this is better since the automation means games go quicker, but what's kept me playing this game for 11 years is community maps. The game has a robust map maker, so anyone can make one, which means there's a lot of stuff to sift through. So to spot the good maps, I've had to figure out what makes a good map good. To demonstrate this, let's look at the classic world map and the case study of Australia versus South America. We have two players, one starting in Australia and one in South America. We'll call Lord Yannick and Peasant Ando. The good lord sets up in Australia, slams his dudes in Siam. Peasant Ando builds up Venezuela and Brazil. For Yannick, we know the Australia playbook. Keep on slamming in Siam. Meanwhile, in South America, Peasant Ando is making moves on Central America, forwarding it up to focus on Africa. Lord Yannick takes India and China, but doesn't really know where to go from there. He keeps on going, but there isn't a clear path for him to work to. He's gone from the smallest continent to the biggest, most untenable one. The tension just went from totally safe to oops all borders. But over in Ando land, Africa gives us an interesting goal. He can mostly forget about Central America, but Africa gives us a rising action in tension. He has to break his bottleneck, but he has a more immediate goal than Yannick does, the continent bonus. It's a longer front line, but it gives Ando a reason to put himself into a more interesting position. Whereas for Yannick, the size of the continent, the connection between territories, the meager backing of the smallest continent bonus means Lord Yannick is starting to fail. So we cut our losses and slam back in Siam. Luck turns south for Peasant Ando too. His neighbor wants their own continent bonus and rolls through the bottleneck for it. It's not looking great for either. They're both getting squashed down. Venezuela, Indonesia, Peru, New Guinea, Argentina, Brazil, and finally the Australias. Yannick has lost. He walks away from the table. He just kind of stands there. Ando's still got some of Africa though. Dead ends are tempting to include for the strong starting potential, but without loops, players don't have pathways into interesting situations and out of dire ones. And Yannick looks on dejectedly. Ando makes a decent recovery. He's got Africa and is working towards Europe to get defensive bottlenecks in Iceland and Ukraine. He still has a goal, a pathway to aspire to, a smaller, more immediate victory. Lord Yannick sits back down. He's on Twitter now, that's how you know he's sad. Eventually, Ando still loses, not able to rouse the troops, but he was playing until the end. He's engaged the whole time. As you can see, there's some problems with how the mechanics work on a deeper level, but a good map can mitigate these problems. By combining bottlenecks, loops, and goals, a map gives a more interesting game loop where it's less about who wins than the smaller victories we win along the way, while keeping more people in the match for longer. The best Lux maps balance these, usually by inventing a whole new world or centering around a sea and building loops across it. But that's only half of what got me into Lux for half my life and counting. I spent the second half of 6th grade in Costa Rica. It's a strange and alienating experience as a kid, knowing you're only going to know people for 6 months. People whose lives are planted beneath them where all you have is what can fit in a suitcase. They knew BB guns, I knew Lego. They knew ATVs, I knew... well, you get the picture. A couple months in, our teacher invited me to join him and some of the other students in the classroom for recess. Huddled around the old box of a monitor, we played Lux. The automation meant that we could play a full game or two during recess, and the speed of games meant that we didn't have to take any loss or victory too close to the chest. We could make or break alliances, smack talk, and be foolish without anything being a disaster for longer than 10 minutes. I had a lot of fun, and when I think back to my time, that's what I'm fondest of. My teacher recognizing that I was a lonely kid who didn't have the means to connect with my classmates. It's been 11 years since I left Costa Rica, and even though Lux has an online mode, I can't bring myself to change the names from Peasant Ando, Lord Yannick, or Burma Shave. And that's why I've played so much Lux. So why deal with the front half so much? All the hypotheticals, the loops and bottlenecks and jests and japes? Because this is what analysis can do. You can't have the experience that made me give this game a chance. You can't be in 6th grade at that school feeling lonely like I was, because that school isn't around anymore. Haha, it was a twist, it was a ghost the whole time. But I can tell you things more intrinsic to the game that might serve as a shared platform for you to have similar kinds of experiences. Or totally different ones built on a shared base for a conversation about it. Yes, map construction is increasingly what I find interesting about Lux, but really it's a way to rope you down the spiral of my experiences, to impart onto you some of what caught my attention, and maybe even convince you to check the game out. Or at least to stop starting in Australia. Yawn!